WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We Should Know is on the air. We want to thank you for each and every week being here as this show airs at 2:30 on Tuesday. We're simulcast on WCLN Radio, Star Communications TV. Also, Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. You can find us on Star Communications TV on Channel 16 as well. We're talking about something today that really brings home the bacon. And we're talking with Chad Herring and Matthew Carter. Guys, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Chad, I'm going to kind of start with you. Your background obviously is interesting, but one of the most interesting things is that you're a third-generation pig farmer. And by your information that you gave me is that you grew up in this particular field and have family nurseries that you actually, we're going to talk about how this process goes. But you also have a Bachelor's of Science degree and also a bachelor's in construction and management from East Carolina University. The other thing I want to kind of toss out this morning as well, Chad, is this whole thing of North Carolina Family Farms. We're going to find out what that is. Matthew, I want to spin to you. Your background is interesting farm-wise, and we were talking before we came on air about some of the reasons you ended up where you did and decided to get into this as opposed to maybe you were looking at construction and some other things. But you own a pretty large piece of the landscape when it comes to animals, and that's not only hogs, but cows and that kind of thing. And this is something that interested me is that both you guys have academic degrees. Both you guys are what we call hog farmers or animal farmers. Matthew, one of the things also interests me is that you actually was in a role where you went out and looked at other farms with Smithfield to basically make sure that they were meeting the requirements and so forth to supply as suppliers to Smithfield. Mm-hmm. So let's open it, if you will, with that introduction for both of you. Clearly, you have expertise in the field. You've been doing this for some time. Let's start, Chad, if we can, with North Carolina Family Farms. I want to make sure we have enough time to speak to that because both you guys are involved in that. Where did this idea come from to create a nonprofit called North Carolina Family Farms? And I'll steer people to your webpage, your very detailed webpage. Why was that important? How did it come up? And when did it hit the ground?
Certainly. North Carolina Farm Families started in 2015. And it was a way to give voice to thousands of farm families across North Carolina. And at that time, in 2015, we were faced with some attacks on our farm families from a series of billboards that were being placed in eastern North Carolina that read, "Hog farmers are polluting our waters." And we knew that wasn't true, and we needed an organization to stand up and speak out in defense of our farm families. And that's kind of how farm families got started.
Yeah, and Matthew, let me segue to you. You look at this from the landscape, just about every part of it. When you hear the commentary that folks have about what, quote, a hog farmer is or a pig farmer, whatever, what do you want to say that means? How would you define that from a person that's lived it?
So a lot of people have the misconception that these are farms that are corporate farms and things like that, but they're really not. They're family farms. They've been operated by families for many generations. I'm a second generation on my farm, but actually a third generation hog farmer and a fourth generation farmer altogether. And what we really want people to know is that there's folks like me and Chad out there. We bring our kids to the farm. They grow up on the farm. They love it. Our wives come. We have get-togethers, whether it's family reunions and things like that, right on our farm, and we live on our farm and in these communities as well.
The interesting thing, and this is for either one of you, is that folks may get the idea of the kind of bringing together with the family and that kind of thing, but Help us understand the dynamic of what and I'll use the term hog farm. A lot of folks like to hear the word swine, but hogs, pigs make sense. That's what I grew up hearing. So when I look at that, give us the gravity of that. What does that mean beyond just, well, this is what I do, or this is where I live? How big a part of your life is this? And do you have a time you can turn it off or turn it on? Either one of you, or both of you.
Well, it's a huge undertaking for sure. Our farm is kind of the nucleus of our family. My cousin lives here. My grandmother lives here. We started the farm, and then we built our homes around it. Mm-hmm. So it's an important part that we want to keep going. Now, is it something you can cut off and go to the beach and leave unattended? Absolutely not. It's a 24/7 job. Somebody has to be around to make sure in case we have a power outage or something like that would occur. But it's just it's an incredible thing. As I see my family being raised around it, I was raised on this farm, but it's also something that we take great care in being around and taking care of our animals. So
I think it's a good point. You can't use, because you're right. I mean, it sounds to me like doing what you guys do. Obviously it's good to go to the beach, it's good to travel or whatever, but you can't turn it off. And at the end of the day, no matter how great a job your helpers are, they still don't own it. Yeah. You own it, and you're responsible for it. Matthew, I want to take that same thought and go to you. Help us differentiate what people see when they see Smithfield Food, and one of the largest meat packing operations, say in Bladen County, or the one here in Clinton. They see that huge conglomerate that's international. You've been there and connected back to the farm. Help folks see the difference between the two.
So when you see Smithfield Foods, you think of things like the processor in Bladen County. You think of a large corporation that's based, a lot of their operations are based right here in Eastern North Carolina. But what you don't see is the families and the farmers behind the scenes that do a lot of the work to produce that product that Smithfield markets, and it ends up on your plate. It ends up in different parts of the United States. It ends up all over the world. And to be a farmer and know that wherever somebody is enjoying a piece of pork, that you possibly had a hand in producing that particular meal that they're having, and that's a big deal to us farmers.
What are some of, and I really haven't given you guys a lot of time to think about this, and I don't want it to come from your heart. What is some of the biggest challenges we're looking at now? And you talk to people a lot. What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys see that you're facing, not only now, but going forward? Whether it's property tax increases, whether it's government involvement. There's something called DWQ that I know that you guys are very familiar with. I want to talk about that a bit as well. Kind of give us a spin on that.
Well, there's a lot of different challenges that we face as farmers. I kind of put them in buckets. I mean, you got a regulatory bucket, you got a political bucket over here, you got policy. We're just talking about the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Mm-hmm. We gotta deal with the regulations that they put out. We got to follow those, and that's something that Matthew and his family have followed to a T. The laws or the regulations that have been put forth by them. But there's also activist groups that are constantly wanting to shed a negative light on our farms. And that's something that we have to respond to when we see it in the media. That's another goal of NC Farm Families, is to respond to those attacks and just set the record straight. It's important to make sure people know what the truth is.
Matthew, I'm thinking just what Chad just said, and both you guys sitting here in a TV studio this morning, and we're talking about this. Is it important that you're heard from more, simply to balance that scale from the people that see, hog farming from a whole different perspective, maybe that's never even been there? How important is this kind of messaging to you as a farmer?
So it's very important. We want people to know how their food is produced, and most importantly, know that it's safe and it's affordable and it's very nutritious. And in doing so, they need to hear from the people that produce the pork. And we invite people all the time to come on our farm. And a lot of people, they hear about pork production and things like that, but hearing directly from a farmer, coming on the farm, we hear all the time from people that come to our farm or other farms, it's different than the conceptions that they had of it prior to coming and touring. And it's actually a joy to see people come and learn and say, hey, I think I could do this. I'd love for my family to come out and experience this. I wish my family got to grow up like your family does.
One of the things that we've been looking at is trying to help people better understand farming from a point of view, working with Corpus Extension and Eileen Coit and others over there to try to push that message out. How do you reach kids in school? How do you reach folks that maybe are not in the farm family, Chad, that are out there that will never have any connection with the farm?
Well, that's a good question. And what we do is I open our farm up to University of Mount Olive, I open up to 4-H groups, and we have these students or kids, 4-H camps come out to our farm. And it's always a pleasure to walk around and show them. And speaking to what Matthew said, I've actually surveyed some of the students before. I'll survey them before they come to my farm. What do you think the odor is going to be like? Do you think it's going to be clean? Or, just several questions. And when they come out to the farm, it's substantially more clean and less odor than what we see when we surveyed them before. There's no doubt about it. Our farms are not what people think they are when you think about a hog farm. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to grow up. But that's what we do. We try to invite people onto our farms, open my farm up so that people can come and see firsthand.
One of the things I want to do is continue painting this picture when we come back from break. And I want to talk about some efforts that, should I say, a lot of hours that has been put into a documentary. I'll call it a movie. And I want to talk about that when we come back and why you guys decided to push that forward at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking about hog farming right here in North Carolina. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
I am a firefighter.
I'm a mama.
I am a father.
I am a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
We are North Carolina Farm Families, and we are your neighbors.
Committed to protecting our natural resources for future generations.
And I'm committed to taking good care of the animals that we raise.
And I'm proud to raise my family on our farm.
And I am proud to live and serve my community in eastern North Carolina.
We exist to share the truth, educate the public, and protect North Carolina's farm families.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. J.W. Simmons here, your host for the show called We Should Know. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking about the pork industry in North Carolina and globally, and we're talking with Chad Herring and Matthew Carter. Guys, thank both of you for being with us. You're not only hog farmers, but Matthew, you got cows and hogs. Chad, I've noticed that a lot of hog folks have hogs, but at the same time, I see a lot of cows tied to that. At some point in time, I'd like to kind of touch on that and let people know that there's a genuine connection there that maybe a lot of folks don't see. But this particular segment, I want to talk about something that you've worked on and you're really pushing it out there. And it's a documentary, and I'm going to call it a movie instead of maybe just a documentary film. But it's about an hour and 45 minutes, and it's called Hog Farmer. Now you've got a trailer that can go with that, so we're going to try to air that trailer, which is relatively short, but it gives a little clue in to what that is. From the perspective of both of you, I want you to kind of tell us, why did you feel that important to produce? Why now? And how is the kind of development of that? How are you doing in getting that particular documentary out?
Well, Hog Farmer, The Trials of Joey Carter is a film about a family, the Carter family, who followed all the rules and regulations and had been sued for nuisance, and eventually lost their right to, or ability to grow hogs because of it. Now, independent filmmaker Jason Authors and Well Raised Productions picked this up and produced this film. And now today we have a tool that we can take and share with the public and teach folks about what happened throughout those nuisance trials. There were a lot of twists and turns that took place. And Matthew, having lived the nuisance trials, would definitely be better to tell you about what happened than I would. But it's time that the public know what happened during those nuisance trials. Matthew, you want to elaborate on
Matthew, go ahead.
So Jason Arthur's come to my family and said, hey, we would love to make a documentary about your experience through these trials. And the day he started was the day that we actually were selling the last hogs off our farm. And it was a sad time, and Jason was there to capture that. And he followed us throughout the whole experience through the next trials that we had to endure in our local court here in Raleigh. And then he followed us through the appellate court and showed all the different trials that we had to go through in our lives. And it was important to my family to do that, to be able to show other state legislations and people all over the world that what we do, we follow the law. We do everything the way we're supposed to do it. We tried to, be upstanding citizens in our community. And then this happened to us, and that no matter what, we didn't do anything wrong, so we kept our head up. And that if other states don't get ahead of right to farm and trespass laws in their state, then these lawyers that come in and did this to us could actually do it in their states as well. And in the end, you would have an industry that could be wiped off the map.
Matthew, just listening to your description here, and Chad, I'm glad you pointed out that your family, Matthew, was like in the center of this vortex, so to speak. Do you feel like that your family was targeted, or was the entire industry targeted?
So the entire industry was targeted, but the reason that our family was pushed to the forefront is the plaintiff's attorneys got to pick first, and they picked a farm and it went to trial. And Smithfield got to pick second, and they picked our farm. And the reason why they picked us is they separated out two of our plaintiffs that actually bought the land from my family 5 years after our farm was in existence. And they said that right to farm will protect you. Your farm is a really good farm, and you followed all the rules and regulations, and we feel like we can't lose your case. And we went to court, and the way the trial was set up, it was a no-win for the pork industry. And they wanted you to think that it was about Smithfield, but it was actually about the family farmer and the agreement between the farmer and the integrator to produce a product. And they were suing the integrator, Smithfield, but in turn, what they did is they put the local farmer out of business.
And the sad thing I'm hearing here, and I can almost hear it in your voice, is that they looked at the integrator. It sounds like what I hear you saying. It seems that the integrator had, I'll use this phrase, I guess folks will understand what I'm saying here, deeper pockets.
Correct.
So when you look at that multi-billion-dollar industry of Smithfield, it became kind of the point we want to get there first, but at the same time, you lost your family lineage in producing pork for people.
Yeah. So we were actually sued directly the first time, and it went to our local court in Duplin County, and it was thrown out based on right to farm. And the second time when they refiled these suits, they filed it against Smithfield, and because of them being based out of another state jurisdiction, put the suit in federal court. And ultimately, my family, our buildings right now, we've had to tear them down because of, what it's going to cost us to pay in taxes if we left the barn still standing there. And we've actually torn down 3 of the 7 houses, and the other 4 I'm in the process of gutting them right now so that I can convert them into a stocker calf operation and be able to continue to produce income on my farm, because without the hogs, we didn't have an income. So we've had cows all along, but we've actually had to put our apples in another basket and start over and scratch our heads and back up and try again, because we want to farm.
Yeah. You became the unwitting participant in a destruction process that you didn't create.
Correct. Yeah. So we tell everybody, you know, we didn't step forward, you know, to take the spotlight, but my dad and myself, we've always had other jobs and other incomes, and our farm has been our hobby and something that we're proud of. And what we wanted to do was if we could help, we just wanted to do whatever we could for the industry.
So Chad, listen to Matthew, the story that he's talking about unfolds visually in the documentary. And again, an hour and 45 minutes sounds like a lot of time, but just touching on what you touched on, Matthew, you got to have that time for people to totally understand what's happening. Now, obviously, I have not seen the movie. I've only seen the trailer. But tell us the aspects of that movie that you think are at kind of critical points that are important for people to see that actually may cause them to rethink this process about animals and waste and what happens.
Well, the movie is very compelling. It's when you start to watch the movie, if you look away for 10 seconds, you might miss an important part. It's just full of information, and all of it is really important. I can't say one part or the other is more important. It's all very important. It takes a lot of twists and turns. But Matthew mentioned about Right to Farm. Right to Farm didn't protect Matthew because we had a judge on that case that just, he stepped around it. But since that time, our legislators have worked to strengthen our Right to Farm laws. We've got Senate Bill 711 that's been put into place, and that kind of defines nuisance a little bit and saying you have to live a half a mile from the nuisance in order to file suit, or you have to be the legal owner of that property. And then later we had House Bill 467 passed, which really limited the damages that can be awarded in a case like this. It said that if it was a permanent nuisance, that you could only receive the fair market value of that property, or if it's a temporary nuisance, it would be the rental value of that property. So our legislators saw what happened, and they went to work to strengthen those protections for our farm families. But since the trials began and even today, farm families, North Carolina farm families, is working to communicate about them, educate our public about what happened in these trials, and just keep highlighting our farm families. We want to show people that Matthew and Mr. Choi are just like you and I, or anybody else out there. We're just working hard and trying to make a living and doing things the right way. So
once this movie was put together, and obviously you and your family had an opportunity to take a look at it, I guess, before it went even anywhere else, is there pieces in that movie that you'd like to kind of highlight now as we're talking? And hopefully folks will find and we'll talk about ways that they can find out to see it. But as folks look at it, is there things you'd like to say, listen, while you're looking at this, I'd like for you to remember such and such?
So Jason did a really good job putting it together. He actually took testimony from the plaintiffs in their depositions, and it's in the documentary. You've got video footage from my family, on the farm and throughout the trials that we went to. But if you watch, you'll hear something that's said. The way Jason put it together, you'll hear something that's said, and then he'll follow behind it with something as simple as they said that, you could do what you wanted to back in the day. You could build hog houses anywhere. And then you got Jason coming behind it with a story telling about how my family, lived in a single wide trailer, my mother and my father, and how they had $50 to their name a lot of times. And they went to the bank, and the banker took a chance on them to loan them the money to build it, to eventually be able to put their family, through school and through life. And that's something I tell people: watch it. You'll hear something, and then you'll see something that comes behind it that actually tells you a different view. So be open-minded, and like Chad said, don't blink or you'll miss something.
I think that's the important piece here, is that, and I use the word documentary, I use the word movie, but more than anything, it sounds like I hear what you guys are saying, is that this is an educational piece within itself, and the idea of kind of getting that out there for folks to process. Oftentimes when I'm looking at stuff for educational purposes, I might look at it 2 times or 3 times, and I'm still picking up stuff that I missed the last time. But this has been kind of factually, I guess, adapted, analytically proven. There's no hedging anywhere. I want to kind of continue this conversation when we come back from break to kind of give folks an idea, not only some of the other things you might want to bring out, Matthew, but where they can see this, what you have in mind, what channels are you looking at pushing this out on for public consumption. But we'll be back in a moment to continue this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We're talking about a documentary, a movie called Hog Farmer, and we'll be back in one moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
The following clip is from the documentary Hog Farmer, The Trials of Joey Carter.
I don't go to the beach and don't really vacation, but I tell people this is my beach to farm. I love being on the farm, It's what I get up every day and look forward to is taking care of my animals.
Words can't describe the importance of people like Joey. When you see things that are made in the USA, they're made here in Beulahville, they're made in areas like Duplin County.
Some folks in North Carolina claim a food company is dumping waste right on their doorsteps. Hundreds have gone to court to make it stop.
Testimony you're about to give?
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
So help me God, yes.
Residents said they had to endure sickening smells and noises that made their lives miserable.
That's why about 500 North Carolina residents are suing a subsidiary of Smithfield Foods.
The lawyers got them convinced that you're not suing Joey Carter, you're suing Smithfield.
They concentrated on a really small area right here.
White people did what they wanted to do, and if they had money, they built the hog houses.
They say like they only build hog farms in black communities. And those people who lived here never knew there was a hog farm here.
I'm not gonna lie on my neighbor. If I don't smell nothing, count me out.
This has drove a wedge between people that would speak and laugh together on a daily basis. It's not happening.
The plaintiffs specifically say we have no medical claim, not a single medical bill, nothing.
We're suing on the basis of health effects, but we can't talk about your medical records. To me, that's just absolutely, that's a miscarriage of justice.
You can imagine what might happen if there's a breeze.
And Dr. Wing had never been to Joey Carter's farm. He had no idea what was on Joey Carter's farm.
Let me tell my story. Let him come on my farm.
I never saw other reporters out there on these farms. They wheeled a plastic pig covered in dirt into a federal courtroom.
The juror walked by our table, looked over and just said, bullshit, and then walked out.
And I thought, the farmers don't stand a chance.
Nobody wants another Flint, Michigan.
From a PR perspective, it was not good. It's not good.
They say it's always the darkest right before dawn.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know's on the air. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host. We're talking about hog farmers today. We're talking about the importance of bringing home the bacon, and we're talking with two people that know something about that, Chad Herring and Matthew Carter. Guys, as we went to break a while ago, we were talking about the documentary movie documentary, whatever way you want to put that, but it's being pushed forward by North Carolina Family Farms, statewide, I guess nationally. Matthew, you were elaborating. I want to pick up with you. You were elaborating on the movie because that documentary was built around, should I say, the journey of your family and how some of these lawsuits literally destroyed a family-owned farm. Let's pick it up there and get to some of those genuine points when people see that movie that they need to look at, because your dad was directly involved in the visual part of that.
Yeah, so probably my favorite part of the movie is the very beginning, when the first time you see my dad come on screen and he says, I tell people, I don't go to the beach. The farm is my beach, and this is where I like to be. And you get to watch, a lot of our family and growing up. You get to see my little girl. You get to see her when she's 1 year old, and now she's fixing to be 5. So they followed us for 3 years. Everywhere we went, they condensed the film down by using different things that they had of our family, different clips, as well as the pellet court in Raleigh, different things that went on while the trials were happening, and they made a documentary out of it. And it in the end, it's a sad ending. It hurts to watch it, but obviously we want people to see it. And as we had a screening at Hub's Corn Maze here in Sampson County, another screening at University of Mount Olive, followed by another screening October the 4th in Duplin County at the Ed Emery Auditorium. October the 14th, the documentary will be released on Amazon so that people can watch it, in their own homes. We've got other screenings. It's actually been shown at a film festival in Kansas. There was a showing in Oklahoma. North Carolina Farm Families has been a big instrument to be able to get this documentary out there and help our story get told.
And Chad, I think with North Carolina Farm Families, I guess to cue you up on this is one of those eye-opening moments that you want to make sure that folks not only figure out a way to find it, but make it as easy as possible for them to see it, correct?
Yes, sir. We have pulled out all the stops as far as communicating about this and trying to get as many eyes on this film as possible. I've watched it several times, and every time it just grabs me, and I got to watch it till the end. But we want to definitely, Matthew talked about September 26th is our next screening over at the University of Mount Olive, and then again October the 4th at Ed Emery. And then following that, we're going to continue to promote it, and we've got hopefully have some screenings nationwide. So,
when I'm backing up to the film itself and the content of it, I felt something that you just said, which was it basically is a story of the destruction of your family and your family farm, Matthew.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that there's a lot of tragedy here for you.
Yeah, and you'll see that watching my dad and the different things that he had to go through, watching the pigs leave the farm, and knowing that he had something that he could pass down, and now he felt like he didn't. Obviously, we've transitioned into more cattle, and we're building it up. My dad's got 5 grandchildren and a 6th one on the way, and hopefully we'll have something that all of those kids will be able to grow up on the farm, because that's important to us, is to be able to pass it on to the next generation to carry on agriculture.
There's another tragedy though that takes place in the film, and that's what greed will do.
Yeah.
When you see people take down somebody that has spent their life doing what's right and supporting their community and serving their community as, like you said, a police chief and a firefighter, and we see some lawyers come in from out of town and offer some money, I'm sure the payout was small compared to what was really lost here, but that really impacts me when I see somebody put out of business because of greed, and that's exactly what happened here with the case of Joey Carter, and that's just a bigger problem. I know we talk a lot about Joey and his family losing their farm. They did, but when you look at society as a whole, that's a bigger problem that this film also shares with folks. You get to see what greed does.
There's a lot of folks who look at this. We have a lot of ag people obviously look at this show, because a lot of ag people, this show airs in their world. Is this something that happened to your family, Matthew? Is this something that could have easily happened to anyone out there?
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, you've got people that are looking at coming into Sioux farmers, whether you're a cattle farmer, a poultry farmer, a row crop farmer. If the dust from your combine leaves the property boundary, the odor from your animals, the noise from your vehicles and the truck traffic, you've got people that are looking at litigation to come in and sue farmers, and with the small number of people out there in agriculture, with the tasks that they have moving forward with the growing population to be able to feed our world, that's the whole purpose of the documentary. Produce something, get people to understand that if we don't protect our farmers, this will happen to you, not just here in our community where agriculture is a big deal, but it can happen anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
This documentary took a lot of time. I want to touch on that a minute. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of processing, and it took financial support to get that out. Where did that come from? And this kind of gets back to North Carolina Family Farms as a nonprofit entity. So is that how you got it supported? Was through assets with the North Carolina Family Farms, or did other farmers come up and support? Or both?
There was a lot of support for it. Jason obviously owns the film, Well Raised Productions. He produced the film, and he was responsible for supporting it. We're helping to promote that film. We work closely with the Pork Council and trying to promote it as well. So,
Matthew, if you had to look at this and going forward, do we need other kinds of movies? Do we need other kinds of, should I say, educational programs about family farms? We've been working here at STAR for some time trying to put something together called On the Farm. We haven't really got everything together, and it is a huge task. You guys know with just this one documentary how large that is. Is this something that we've missed, is educating everyone, not only our people that doesn't live around here, but our neighbors?
Yeah, so what we would love to see is we would love to see more documentaries made. We would love to see more farm tours. And the Farm Families has been really good at helping that happen. We'd love to see it in the curriculum. We'd love to see kids at school learning where their food comes from. I would love to see more young kids go to school for trades, because with the ag industry, there's a lot of things that we need. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need welders. So if we could shine a light on the educational system and teach these young kids that there's more things to do out there than just going to school to get a degree to be a doctor or a lawyer. That agriculture is important. Growing your own food is important. It's a huge safety deal with our United States being able to produce our own food supply. And kids need to know that there's a future out there for them. Whether they learn it in elementary school, they learn it in high school, they go to work on a farm in the summer. Growing up, I hear my parents all the time talk about, they had to crop backer for their money to be able to buy their own school clothes. Yeah. And that's something that kids don't get to experience today. And hopefully with Farm Families and the North Carolina Pork Council documentaries out there like this, we'll get people to understand that, being on the farm is a great place to be, and they'll grow up, and then we'll retain them into our industry.
Yeah. Chad, I'm aware that the Corporate Extension folks, Eileen Court is a kind of a regular on this show, and she's looking at a lot of things she can get into the classroom to be part of that regular curriculum. North Carolina State University, we all know there's a land grant university, and they're really there to try to help get that out. Do we have the right connections to actually make this happen?
I think so. You talking about the On the Farm show?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. As I was telling you, we're going to try to support you with that show as well. If there's any kind of footage that we could help with, we're going to be supporting it. And logistically, it is challenging to tell kids about agriculture when you got 2% of the population that farm and the other 98% that consume our products. It's hard to get to every school or every 4-H group or every kid in every class, but that's something that Farm Families does. We're working hard to educate folks. That's why I opened my farm up to have farm tours. If somebody calls me today and wants to have a farm tour, absolutely, I'm ready. Bring them on. We definitely want to help educate the next generation, but it's tough. It is, and we hope that through your show, we can help educate some more folks. So
that's one of the things with the lawsuits that helped bring something to the forefront is we saw that we needed to get more involved as an industry, and it's actually brought us closer together as an industry and helped networking. Whereas before, I knew Chad, but there's a lot of other people that I've met along the way that I didn't know, and I've got connections now. And because of that connection, we've made friends, but we've also been able to work together on projects that would have never happened if it hadn't been for experiences like the lawsuits.
So I hear you, what you're saying, and it sounds to me as though this idea of resilience and maintaining and expanding and education is all a big part of that. And when we come back from break, if we can, I'd like to kind of offer somewhat of a teaser for folks to stay tuned. I want to kind of touch on the overwhelming amount of investment that farmers put into these things called hog houses. The amount of money that's ladled out that you as a hog farmer are responsible for. And sometimes it never goes away, because if you get hit with this generationally, that money is still owed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking about an issue that sometimes you don't hear about, but you know about. Sometimes it's on your breakfast table in the morning and you don't really think about it. Stay tuned, call a friend. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We're coming up on the last segment of We Should Know. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. As always, we thank all those folks that helped get our message out with We Should Know, and that includes the radio station, WCLN. Of course, Star Communications actually originates this program and airs it on Channel 16, the TV channel. And as I told you in the beginning, it airs at 2:30 each and every Tuesday, simulcast on WCLN radio, then airs at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, on the TV side of the house, uploaded to Facebook and social media platforms so you can get the full grasp of what we're talking about. Today's subject, of course, is hog farming, and Matthew Carter is with us, and Chad Herring, North Carolina Family Farms. Matthew, at break, I told you I wanted to come back and talk about the tremendous, and I'm going to phrase it this way, financial responsibility. And I chose those words because I didn't want to say burden. I've already said it, but financial responsibility when somebody is involved in just, I'll use the phrase, if there is such a thing, of an average hog farm. Talk to us about that and how heavy a weight that is, because some folks may think, well, it's pretty easy to do, but the hog farmer owns that. I mean, it's not Smithfield or any, the integrator being the people that kind of has some oversight, but you own that debt.
Yeah, so my dad, being in his late 20s, he got started in it. What he did back then is he built a farm, and that farm is just under 5,000 headspace finishing hogs, and that's the last phase of production before they're processed. And in order to build that farm, it cost him roughly $300,000, in the late 80s, early 90s. And today that's worth, $1.2 million. And in order for somebody to understand what that means is today, if I were to go to the bank and I were to try to purchase that farm, from my dad, I'd have to have 20% cash of that $1.2 million. I'd have to have collateral of equal value if I didn't have that cash. And people don't understand the financials of it. We get a certain amount of income, and that income is projected to pay for that farm in 10 to 12 years. And so annually, when you get that income, if you were to finance that with the bank, 70% of your annual income goes straight to the bank. And the 30% that you're left with, it's going to take roughly 40% of your annual income to pay taxes, to pay insurance, to pay utilities, to pay for labor, to pay for upgrades on the farm. So if you're not diversified and you don't have other revenues coming in, you could be pulling money out of your pocket. You won't make the bank note. People don't understand that stress that's on the farmer, that's one of the biggest things farmers deal with today is stress and markets and being able to cash flow things. And a swine farm is a big investment that farmers made and still moving forward today. You know, there's farmers out there that don't have another generation to pass it on to. So who's gonna pick up those farms? What's gonna happen to those farms? And hopefully, you know, young farmers like myself and Chad will be able to get involved and pick those farms up and be able to continue to sustain the swine industry in North Carolina.
Chad, as Matthew was talking about those things, something struck me that I read. It was one of you guys that mentioned that one of the big jobs and one of the things that hog farmers do is they solve problems. They're problem solvers. And that sounds simple just putting in that phrase, but when you say that, that's continuous. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's like every few minutes there's another problem. It's not like, well, I solved the problem today, I'm going home. This is a continuous, sometimes repetitive. So we're talking a high, intense, stress-related job.
Absolutely. There's every day you're faced with a challenge, whether it's working on a feed motor or managing your manure that's produced by the pigs. There's the challenges every day. And Matthew talked a little bit about stress. It is a very stressful job. And we post a lot about this on North Carolina Farm Families, just the stress level and suicide prevention. I mean, think about the stress that Matthew and his family were under just raising hogs, and then you add a nuisance lawsuit on top of it. I mean, it's an incredible amount of stress. But you're right, problem solving that stress, you know, being able to de-stress and kind of relax a little bit as a farmer is important too. So
my friend, Mr. Jimmy Dixon, Representative Dixon, as most people know him, he's got a saying that he coined, and it's a great saying. He said, "Thankful for those farmers that are willing to put up with the struggles of production so that many can enjoy consumption."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the idea we're talking about right now, is that we're kind of in the last segment of the show, and I want to try to get this in. How do we hear from you guys, and how do you create an environment to sustain folks that's willing to step into this storm?
What do you mean by storm? Just
everything that goes on, solving those problems.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when something goes wrong, you may decide to take a vacation, but guess what? 24/7, your mind's still on that farm. That's the storm that I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's no, I don't know that you can prepare somebody for it. You just, but once you get in and you start to figure things out, I mean, you kind of know how to deal with things. You know, you learn how to operate the farm and learn how to do things, and definitely become good at problem solving.
The reward is the ownership. You know, it's the ownership of the farm, the product that you produce, knowing that you follow all the rules and regulations, knowing that you put meat on the table for yourself, your family, and for others. That's the reward.
So the lineage idea of agriculture, and I'm sure there's folks that are listening that may have had thought about what you mentioned, Matthew, was I've got maybe kids, but you know, they're not really interested in getting into that, and they're maybe reaching the age, well, listen, I don't want to keep doing this simply because I can't. And so what do I do with that farm? It's not as easy as saying, well, I'm gonna put my farm on the market and somebody will pick it up. It's not that easy, is it, Chad?
It's not possible for me. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, our farm is the nucleus of our family unit. Our family has moved and built houses around it, and it's got to be that way. And I'm very passionate. That's why I'm here today. That's why I work to protect farm families, because that's where we live at. And I just am so passionate about it and just maintaining our family farm. If my son or my daughter decides not to be a pig farmer, I'm fine with that. I don't know what'll happen then, but for me, I'm going to carry on the family farm. That's just the way it is.
Matthew, we're really talking about a serious issue here, because we're talking about the sustaining nutrition, not only of this state, of this community, but literally the world, because the hog farmer distributes protein all over the world. When we look at that, I know you've been involved with the Pork Council on the state level, and it requires quite a bit of lobbying. Speaks to that.
So recently I was able to be part of a group, North Carolina Pork Leadership Group. It was an inaugural group, and there was 20-some of us selected, young emerging people in the pork industry all across North Carolina. And the opportunity that we got was to be able to go to Raleigh, take some classes, be educated in the way things work, policies, lobbying, government, different things like that. And then we were able to take it to the next step, and we were able to go to Washington, D.C. and do the same thing as well, and experience what it takes to get bills passed, to make things happen that protect as well as provide safety to our industry, not only to pork production, but to agriculture as a whole. And it was a great honor to be able to do that. And moving forward, I hope that my group, we network and that we're able to grow and expand our roles in the pork industry in North Carolina, like Chad's been able to do working with North Carolina farm families.
There's so many different aspects of that. We could probably do different shows on different things. And again, we've talked off air about what we're trying to do here to get a ag show going. But at the end of the day, your responsibility is to paying that debt. And I like the way you laid that out, how that evolved, because folks oftentimes look at it and go, well, that hog operation, he's just making a whole lot of money. He's got this truck and that truck. And when you calculate all the money that you've invested, it is in the millions.
Yeah.
But the fragment of that you get back is sometimes causes the average person, when they hear what you said, to give pause to it. And then suddenly you discover, well, we began this show talking about nuisance lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be prepared for that supposedly torpedo that hits you from the side that you never imagined.
Well, look at all the different businesses that our industry affects. We got tires that need to be changed.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of industries out there that we purchase things from. There's feed stores where we purchase stuff for our other animals that we have, like our cattle. There's all kinds of tools that we need to purchase from different stores that we have locally, and box stores as well. So we're not just buying agriculture products. We're actually investing in other businesses in our communities to help sustain them as well.
And Chad, another thing that strikes me is, Matthew mentioned that, is the injection of tax money that you pump into the local community.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. A lot of people look at it and go, well, I own a home and maybe it's $200,000 or $300,000 and my taxes are so and so. But we're talking, as you pointed out, millions of dollars that you're taxed on that goes back to local government, which is significant. And imagine what happens when that would go away.
Look at Duplin County. The top 5 taxpayers, 4 of them have to do with agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what would happen to our communities if we didn't sustain agriculture in them.
Yeah.
You'd see the Dust Bowl right here.
Pork production, it contributes to about $10 billion in North Carolina's economy. So it's very important. And I tell you, when I look at pork production in North Carolina, I see the people that attended that legislative conference that Matthew was a part of. We got a bright future. We got some good people coming up to take some leadership roles, and things are looking good for North Carolina pork for sure.
Well, the name of the documentary is Hog Farmer. We want to make sure everybody sees that. We want to make sure you remember the names of Matthew Carter and also Chad Herring and North Carolina Family Farms. We want to get you to that website, and we'll try to post that on the screen for those folks that need to remember that. But if they'll just go to that website, that'll be extremely informative and helpful. I want to thank both of you guys for being with us today and taking time in your busy schedule to come in for a few minutes in the studio and have a conversation with us. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for having us, Mr. JW.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here with another topic, another issue. And as always, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.